Well, g'day campers, how are we? Welcome to another Thursday night live. And today's been a pretty interesting day. So I'm just going to start it off with getting the mood right.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I've had an interesting day and I'm just going to start this off right. A bit of a smile and a bit of a giggle. Today, we have with us the amazing Heise, a professional leadership and emotional productivity coach. Just a little wave, please, Angela. Peter Peter D. Peter D.
Yeah.
So, sorry?
Catania is a city in Sicily, so it's like Peter of Catania. So Catania, Peter D. Catania. How about that?
No, beautiful. Thank you very much for that. So he's from Men's Health Group Australia, and we'll dive into a little bit more about what Peter does in a minute because it's going to lead right into where I want to go today. And the wonderful Sharon Chemello, thank you. She's a teacher, a life coach, and a happy camper. So welcome, campers, to another Thursday Night Live. I'm going to introduce. I'm actually going to get quite serious now. So off with the hat. Bit of a smile to start. We'll just have a quick chat off air, and we're talking to Peter quickly. And sorry, I've got a little question popped up already. So talking to Peter about what he does and an issue with sugar. And I just want to jump straight over to you, Peter, if that's okay, and just jump into explain what happened today.
I have a client that's been escalating a little bit. He's got a mental disability. He's 60 years old. I won't go into names, obviously. And a part of his we have a plan. So if things go south and he gets upset, he's allowed to have he's got a plan in place, a behavioural plan that if he has issues or has a behaviour, gets really cranky, we're to supply him or offer him any food or drink of his choice. And that's usually Coca-Cola at the top of the list, or biscuits or marshmallows or similar. And there's learnt behaviours, so they actually learn how to get these kind of snacks and things they want. But as you know, sugar and everything that mixing with disabilities or any people that that have health issues, it doesn't go well. And we're there to clean up the mess pretty much, or just deal with it. We have to deal with it, and it's a 12-hour day. It's a long day, and it's all 12-hour night. And it's really frustrating because we love to do the whole what you call your natural consequences, what you do at home with your children. But unfortunately, there's restricted practices that protect the clients because they need to be protected in a lot of areas due to abuse and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of laws around restricted practicing, and that includes medication and locked doors, that kind of thing, for their safety. But on the other hand, it can be a real downfall. It just makes things a lot harder for us on the front line.
Okay. So in general, the sugar's been a big issue for some of your clients. When they load up, it actually increases your workload.
Well, they're already full to the top with prescription medication, and then with sugar, and then there's coffee. They usually have a number of behaviours anyway, because a lot of them come from the institutions days. A lot of our clients are aging. A lot of them are over 50. So they have learned behaviours already come in, and like I've only been in the field probably around about 15, 16 years. But I've seen a lot, and I've seen what happens when they do learn. They learn. They know each carer's personality type. They know they have a what you call a relationship with each carer that's different to everyone. So they know what they can and cannot get away with each carer. Yeah. So if you have strong morals and you know how to. You never say no to a client, but you say, maybe can we just wait a few more minutes or something similar, or maybe after lunch we can have that treat, But sometimes you can't. Sometimes they escalate. There's no 1 to 10. It's like 1, 10. They're there. So you got to go into rescue mode straight away.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Sharon, it looks like you've got something to pop onto this.
Oh, I must have been nodding in agreement too much there. Don't get me started on sugar and children at school. Yeah. I can tell you, I can pinpoint which little characters in my class will be high as kites after lunch because of what's in their lunchbox. And so then you go out on duty and you see what's in their lunch boxes, and you know exactly what those little characters are going to come back in like. And 9 times out of 10, you can predict which of them has that real chemical reaction with the sugar. And, they might have had a really calm, productive morning, and straight after morning tea, they're off. They're just off, and they're climbing walls and having fights and some of them are just silly and some of them are aggressive. And there's a definite link there between the sugar fix and the behaviour. So,
well, that's something we need to be. It's something we need to be looking at the minute. Like your kids are at home full on, and it's an easy fix. Give them something to eat. Let's get them, keep them quiet for a bit. Angela actually, believe it or not, got me to think about what I was doing. We're having a conversation the other day, and she was talking about self-care and how you look after yourself. And the thing that I took away from that was I need to make sure that I'm eating right. At the moment, I'm eating a fair bit of comfort food. It drops my mood, takes me down because I'm a very energetic person. I'm full of beans, and then when I eat bad food, it takes that energy away. And so I want to thank you for that, Angela, for pointing that up. But why has that been your experience that you're so careful with your food?
Because I know like Peter, I know of the effect that food that doesn't work for me has on me. Yeah, so if I eat food that may uplift me for a short period of time, like complex carbohydrates or refined sugar, anything like that, I know I pay for it short time afterwards. I fall asleep. I get really hyper for a little while, and then I get really, really tired. And I've been a trainer for 25 years, and I tell you, when it comes to doing training programs, I'm really strict. When I ask for food, where people go, "What are you talking about? Salads for lunch?" And fruit and cheese platters, and some high protein snacks, vegan or nuts, anything of that sort. You don't want sandwiches, you don't want this pasta salads, and I'm like, no, because there's no point in having me over if you serve people that, because especially after lunch, there's no learning. Everybody will be asleep, and you're completely wasting having me here. And I know that this is the effect it has on me, and I've seen this thousands of times. So yes, I am. Let me put it this way: come the weekend, and I know I don't have anything on, I might sneak in something. But during the week, and when I know I have to function, nah.
Yeah, Chris. So it's a combined sort of effort here. We're all in agreement that food is the source of how are we all going with our own food? I know for me, I'm not getting it right, and I know it affects me.
I don't really care at the moment. I eat whatever I want at home. We don't do takeout. We don't do anything KFC, McDonald's. I think maybe if I'm desperate, I've had a Subway, but that's usually this ham and salad. But still, the bread's a lot. I've got a perfect example. I've got a really good friend that lives in Byron Bay. He's a doctor of natural medicine, and he's done acupuncture, Chinese acupuncture, Japanese acupuncture, and they study Ayurvedic medicine as well. Him and his wife, she's Brazilian, and they come visit us one Christmas Eve and one Christmas and stayed over New Year's Eve and said, Peter, New Year's Day we're going to start an Ayurvedic. We're going to start a vegan diet. Do you want to join us? I go, no, I don't know about that. And they go, well, it's easy. We'll help. So they got the slow, what do you call the cold pressed juice route, and we did all fresh juice, and then we did fruit for breakfast as well. And then I think we had another, say, a couple of mangoes in that for lunch. And in the afternoon, we had like I think it was like a vegetable broth or something like that. So we did this all up. We did it for like 10 weeks, and I lost 10 kilos. And the first 4 days, my partner and I could have ripped each other's heads off because we were coming down off the sugar. Like seriously, like we pretty much dropped all sugars, all caffeine, everything. I mean, sugar's nearly in practically everything. Like it's in flour, everything, any white goods, it's in everything. And you're amazed how many products sugar is in, and not just that, the preservatives. So the first 4 days was a real struggle. But once we got past that first week, and plus we're starving at the same time, but it was a real challenge, and we've done it twice now, and I think we need to do it again because we're both we stacked on a little bit. So, since Christmas, and it's just hard, running into the new year now. I've got this COVID thing, and, it's, yeah. So I know what it's like having the highs and lows and been through that and gone pretty much cold turkey vegan. I don't recommend it, but I do recommend it because it's so good for your health. But on the other hand, I love the fresh juices in the morning with ginger, celery, beetroot, carrot, and a little bit of orange, not too much sugar, So yeah, it's a transformation, I tell you what. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I myself, I used to be 125 odd kilos, and then I started training, and I had to start eating right. I didn't care much about myself at the time. It was very different, and I know how much just eating bread at the minute. I love a quick bit of bread with lots of butter. We call it butt bread because we put twice as much butter on it than we should have. but at the moment, comfort food's keeping me going, and it's just like today. I went for my first run for a while, and a bit ugly. Sharon, how are you going with it?
I've always eaten fairly well. I think all of us have probably had a little dabble in comfort food in the last few weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
Just coping with the changes and the challenges. But I heard a figure recently that says that 85% of our brain chemicals are made in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
the gut health is absolutely vital. So, that's where the brain chemicals are coming from and being affected by. So if you hear that figure, you think, and, you might be having a bit of anxiety or depression, or a lot of anxiety and depression, you'd need to start thinking about a better diet. So, yeah. So I remember reading that and thinking, right, that's it. No more ice cream. No more chocolate.
I make my own ice cream, so.
Yeah. The problem is also when we're really stressed and we're eating when we're stressed and we're producing a lot of adrenaline, the body actually stops digesting food because it has deprioritized digestion. It is in survival mode. So the last thing it wants to do is process food, strengthen the immune system, anything like that, work on viruses, whatever it might be. So when we're eating food, when we're stressed, and we're eating, especially when we're eating high sugar food, what it does, it activates the dopamine in the brain. So there's the reward centers are getting activated. We're going more, but at the same time, we're not digesting it. And most of the gut, 80% of the immune system are in the gut as well. So the serotonin that we're producing in the gut, which is the feel good, the calming, the happiness serotonin, is completely impaired in its production because we're not digesting, we're eating wrong foods, and then we wonder why we get anxious and depressed, as you said.
What about when it's coming back to the emotional side of it? I mean, put your hand up if you're an emotional eater. I'm not, but any other three of you guys emotional eaters?
Absolutely.
Occasionally, yeah.
I know when I went through my first major relationship breakup, I didn't eat at all. But and then I made a conscious decision not to touch alcohol. But I tell you what, if I have a tough day at work, the first thing I want to do is have a beer. So I'm an emotional drinker. I'll put my hand up to that. So I'll have a beer, when I get home because I need it. I look forward to it. So that's got sugar in it as well. But the emotional side of it plays a big part on our habits, and what we choose to put in our mouths.
It's finding the strategies that work. I travel. I mean, I used to travel a lot for work. And I would definitely, I know that if I came back to the hotel in the evening, I would go, and I normally don't eat sweets, as I said, at all. But if I was really stressed out and I was really, really tired, I would go, first of all, I would go for the chips, and then I would go for the chocolate. The alcohol didn't really bother me. So what I started doing, and that worked really well, even before I checked in, I would call them up and say, please empty the minibar.
Wow.
So there was nothing there. And when I'm like right now in the whole self-isolation thing, I have nothing in the house that could trigger me into this kind of emotional eating. I mean, sometimes I have to say, I looked into the fridge and I go, oh, really? I just really would love to have this right now. But there's nothing there, so I can't eat it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I'm really hoping at some stage I get to bring Leah Follett onto the one of the chats because she's somebody who taught me a lot about food and about gut health. And her kids are autistic. And she went through all the medical practices, all the bits and pieces, went through so many different avenues, but her gut kept saying to her, something's wrong here, something's wrong. I don't know what it is. And she researched and researched and researched, and then she came up with food. And she started really focusing on the food. She ended up working on a farm for a well-known celebrity chef, and just her knowledge is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually brings me to the topic I wanted to open up with today, because I've had to calm down. Angela called me up to calm me down because I was going to come across pretty big tonight, because I'm actually pretty pissed. And there's a medicine that's not talked about enough that I think we need to talk about, and that's listening to each other. The Campfire Project has been one of the best medicines I've ever seen. We sit here, we take the time to get to know each other, and we share each other. When you don't do that and you don't take the time to listen to one another, catastrophic things can happen. I work with clients who are good people that numb themselves, that not sure whether or not they're going to get through the day-to-days. When a medical profession has these systems in place, and I'm not against the medical system because they do a phenomenal job. They've saved my life a couple of times. But we need to listen to people more to get the full story before we cut people off. And I'm gonna share something that I don't know. It's really raw. My wife had an accident a few years ago. She's my queen. She's the person I love with all my heart. I will love anybody, but she's my queen. A 4-year-old boy and a father went to a doctor's to say, hey, listen, we're struggling a bit here. We had an accident a few years ago and we're struggling. We walk into the doctor and we say that, and the doctor turns around to me and goes, I know your wife. She's fine. He never took any time or consideration for me and a 4-year-old boy sitting there talking to him to understand our story. Now, I understand that he was supporting my wife and trying to say, you're strong, you've got this. But if you don't take the time to get to know people and actually give them the best medicine to understand them, are you really doing them justice? Because I know how much that's affected my life. So it's a big statement, but I want to talk about this because I think as humans, the more we get to know each other, the better the medicine is. And it's our stories. So over to you, Angela. Sorry.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know you sent us a message beforehand, and you said you were really, really pissed. And all I did is I called you and said, take a deep breath, and you know.
But it did, and you took the time, and it's just making that little bit of extra effort. And I think that's the one thing that in my life, and tonight it's a panel for everyone, but I'm just sharing where I'm at the minute and with things, because I know we all sat there, and I'm going to share the story of Alan's birthday was amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how we all got connected that little bit stronger. Yeah. It took a bit of effort to do that. It took a bit of effort, but because we did, we're stronger. Our emotions, we were stronger emotionally because we put in a little bit of effort just to get to know each other, do something good for somebody. Is that not medicine? Sharon?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. You know, I've been on antidepressants myself years ago, and I had a lot of trouble coming off them because even though they would claim that they're non-addictive, your body gets used to that input of extra serotonin or whatever it is in them. And in my case, it was serotonin. And then, you know, you try and wean yourself off them slowly, and you support yourself with nutrition or go and see a herbalist or a naturopath. And it's still really hard to get off. And, you know, the doctors are prescribing them left, right and centre, but maybe not trying enough other strategies first, perhaps, or and then that worries me that so many people are going straight on to drugs before other strategies have been utilised, natural strategies, and, you know, even things as simple as exercise and meditation, and, you know, so it is a worry, the over prescription of drugs and the lack of listening to the person's story. You know, maybe there's some healing that can occur instead that might solve the problem.
Yeah. Peter, you had experience with that?
I see a big hole in the system, actually. The problem was, like, I don't want to, I want to bat for you and I want to bat for your doctor. The reason why I'm saying that is what's happened is your wife and your kids have gone in there and you're in there support with your child, and he's seen her. Now, the problem is these days they're pushing patients through like 5-10 minutes. You know, that's all you got. You know, and back in the old days, I remember going to the doctors with my mum when I was a kid, and you used to sit there, you get a lolly, you sit there, and you'd been there for felt like ages, like half an hour. But now they're pushing them through like you wouldn't believe, and like you probably only had time to listen to your partner and those things, and probably he would have said, oh, by the way, if you want to say anything, Scott, you might want to need to make another appointment, and that feels really, really kind of inhumane to say that, because it squashes any of your emotional feelings and all that. But on the other hand, it's true. You have to, because that's how the system's set up now. It's being pushed through so quickly now, and you can't tar one doctor against the other. There's so many really good GPs, general practitioners out there, but there's some that aren't as well. So I'm not sticking up for the doctors, but I am, and I'm listening to you saying, and I know that you really need to be heard right then, and the doctor missed out. He missed that. And that's really sad, and I'm sorry that happened for you. And it shouldn't really have happened on the scope of things, but the way things are set up these days, you know, it's like a drive-through McDonald's, pretty much. You know, in one end and out the other, and you got your prescription for whether it's antidepressants or, you know, amoxicillin or something like that. You know,
and I really appreciate that, Peter, because I like to see both sides of the coin. That was a situation that happened for me a few years ago. The one that got me today, which I wasn't going to open up, but I'm going to now. I've got someone in my life who's just amazing. I truly think he's amazing. And he's been through a fair bit. What smashed me today is all the support networks aren't talking. Here's a guy that needs assistance. His mum has to take care of him, because there's so many flaws in the system, because all they're doing is putting more and more and more drugs in him. They're pumping the methadone into him, and it's created a massive shift. We were going so well, and then that happened, and it's created a few bits and pieces, because no one has taken the time. No one has taken, to have someone sit there and heal him emotionally, and to hear him feel that he's heard, not just jam. I think we need to really look at the medical system and the way in which we treat people. Hear them first. And Pete, you've got something to go with that, and I want to throw it at me.
Oh, my mind's just going on 10 to dozen. I'm really sorry to say, but last year I had my first known casualty with a men's group. A young 21-year-old took his life. Yep. And it just rocked our group. Like, it just, everyone was batting for this guy. And he was a local one in Brisbane, and he was only 21. And what happened with his story was he grew up being bullied through school, and then he came out of the closet, and he's bullied again for being gay. And then his family ostracized him. Like, they kind of like didn't want to know about him because he was gay. And then he got hooked up on prescription medication. He got hooked on alcohol. And he started going in and out of the psych ward as well. And he said, Pete, he wasn't handling it. Everyone's trying to help him. And he went back in. I said, you need to go back to the ward. So we're saying you need to go back, so you can monitor. You're not ready. He wasn't ready. So he went back, and they kicked him out again. And a week later, he committed suicide. He actually already had 5 attempts before that. And it was like our hands were tied. He was only 21. I'm thinking, all I can think of was, when I was 21, I used to think this way. And when I was 31, I think this way. And 41, and now I'm 48 going on 49. It's like you think differently every time. And this guy hasn't had a chance to even get to his 30s. He's just He just couldn't do it anymore. He wanted out. He could not handle it, and there was no one that could help him, or he wasn't able to accept help. One or the other. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a casualty to the whole thing. It was really sad, and it affected all us guys that tried to help him, and that's the only one that I know of, through the last 5 years I've been doing this with the group, and I hope never happens again. But there's not a perfect system anywhere. When you go to the psych wards and the mental health ward, they have systems and they have policy procedures they must follow, and if you admit yourself, you can leave whenever you want. If you admit it by court, it's a different story, or by the police, it's a different story. But if you admit yourself, you can walk out whenever you want as well. So, I don't want to go down it, but I wanted to say, hey, listen, I hear about what you're saying about the system failing, and to me, it failed this guy. I mean, at the end, it was his choice. He took his life, and I had to walk away with that, going, you know what, Pete, don't worry, it was his choice, Peter. There's nothing you could have done.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot. Sorry, Angela, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I would, if I may, I would like to differentiate between drugs that you give somebody because they really need them at the time, and then long-term medicating somebody without actually addressing what's the underlying cause. Mm-hmm. We're still treating people like they are, we're machines, and what we're doing is we're just fine-tuning things, and hopefully things will work out. When we need to really address that, and somebody, one of the Facebook users just said, connection is a medicine. I think that was just so fast. Connection is definitely medicine. That's right. And a lot of these things happen when there is no connection. So yes, they have identified that addiction has a lot to do with loss of connection, but it's the long term. I think what we need is this is my personal opinion, would be really good for us to change consciousness, to just shift it into a different gear. So it's no longer we need to fix people from a place of they're broken or they need to be medicated. Again, short-term emergency, I cannot imagine a hospital without an ER. I think they're absolutely crucial. Yep. But long-term, as Sharon was saying, we need to involve nutritionists. We need to involve, people who work with the mind. There are all sorts of techniques out there, and people who help people deal with emotions. I'm not talking about the severe chemical imbalances, again, but I'm talking about looking, and this is where Scott comes in. I'm looking at the listening, even being able to identify that somebody is going through a short-term crisis and saying, let's address this short-term, or no, this is actually a long-term problem, and let's look at this more holistically.
Yes, well, there's different therapies. Sorry, there's different therapies for short-term and long-term, as you know.
Yes. I know. Sharon was just like, I had to go into hospital once, and I had to have emergency surgery. And it was a very traumatic surgery, and there were all sorts of complications. And I came home, and I remember lying on my bed and thinking, I wonder who would like this. And I had all these thoughts about, really being depressed, and I couldn't really get out of bed. And I was literally diagnosing myself and going, oh, I think I'm clinically depressed. Actually, I think I might have PTSD, and then I would get up and go and teach a course on emotional intelligence and go back to bed for 3 days. And then I went, this is probably not the best way of doing this. Yeah. So I went and I called up a friend who was a psychologist and said, I think I need help. And she said, well, I want you to go to your GP, who was not there. And this is, look, I'm going to talk a little bit longer, if I may. I go to my GPs and I sit down whenever I move and I say, they say, so what, if they say, so what's your problem? I already know that's wrong. If they come, and I had a brilliant one when I lived in Sydney, when I sat down and he said, so what brings you here today? And I went, oh, yes. Yeah. I said, well, I'm actually here to interview you about your communication skills and your approach to medicine. And he was holding a pen, and he put his pen down very carefully, and he said, excellent. What would you like to know? And we talked for an hour, and then he said, I'm really sorry, you realize I have to charge you for this. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. And we had the best relationship. Anytime something was going on with me, I would let him know that I was also doing holistic stuff. Anyway, he was on holidays when I had this crisis. And his colleague insisted on putting me on antidepressants, which I went, okay, I'll do that, but I've got my own tools. And he says, well, we'll do you 6 months. And I said, I'll give you 3. And he's like, nah, we don't do 3 months. You know, there's no way you will be able to do that. And I said, okay, fine, give me the script. So after 3 months, I had done lots of work on myself during that time, using all the tools that I had. I went back to him and I said, I'm ready to come off the drugs. And he's like, seriously? No way. And I said, I am. I said, interview me. Ask me any question you want. So he did. And he said, you really are ready, aren't you? And I said, yes. And I said, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wean myself off it the way that it's, you know, it's recommended, because I don't want to go off cold turkey. And he says, I'll give you another script. And I said, not necessary. I still have 3 months. And he's like, well, I'll give you another one because you probably need it. No.
Stop piling.
Yeah.
So it's the cooperation, as you said, you know, when the system doesn't work together, you know, it's like bringing people together and differentiating. That's what I hope. And the shift of consciousness, and this is what we need. But
isn't this why we're all a part of Campfire? I'm sorry to cut you guys off there, but Andrea Mohamed's popped up and put a big statement on. I'm pretty happy. The system is definitely flawed. I have a family member who's going on 20 years now, who's a doctor, is just switching a legal drug for a legal one. No one is addressing the mental health issue. And I think that's very apt for this conversation, because I am myself, I can't think of a better place than the Campfire to give a perfect example of what mental health treatment looks like and can be. We sit here on panels. We talk about things that are going on that are real life issues. There's no talk about footy. There's no talk about, you know, weather or anything like that. We're talking about life. We're talking about what's really hurting. This is the medicine in life that I think needs to happen. And I'm so proud of everyone for this. And if anyone's watching right now and they've become a member, and I'll just a little bit of a promo for the Campfire, do a one-on-one. Myself, Angela, or Alan, just hit us up, because we actually want to know you. You're important. Your story is bloody important, because it gives other people permission to own theirs. Inside this Campfire, there is so many good people. And for me, this conversation is exactly what needs to happen with the medical system. People getting together. Sorry, Sharon, please put in.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to you back then, and to your friend. And
I'm grateful. I'll just point that out. I'm really grateful all of these scenarios have happened to me, because it's showing me what's important. There's no pain in my life that I'm not grateful for. I've worked through the majority of it, still got a little bit. Everyone's got it, but I'm very grateful for it, because it's teaching me something. Pain is only there to teach me. So sorry.
And Peter's comments too about the young man, and I really value what Angela was just saying. I was just thinking of a post that I saw with one of our colleagues, Michael Laurier, and he posted, and there have been lots of comparisons with COVID and the flu, or COVID and this and COVID and that, and you know that other things you know have high death rates or high take up rates, if you like. But Michael was posting about the suicide rate, and he said not to take away from what's happening with the COVID, but you know, please be mindful about the suicide rate, particularly in young men. And I believe he copped a lot of flack for that. Those comments, and I was disappointed, because I thought, you know, I think we need to be able to look at the two separately and recognise what he's trying to say there. That, you know, we've got COVID going on and we're losing people, and that's, you know, that's serious and that's very upsetting. But at the same time, there are lots of other issues going on that we've maybe dropped the ball on. You know, there was a lot of talk about, you know, the possible rise in domestic violence, and that you know, because people will be in confined spaces. And I was disappointed that they weren't. They kept saying that, but they didn't say but here's the phone number to ring if you're feeling angry. You know, I kept yelling at the television saying, where's the solution? Where's the support? Yeah. But then, sorry, Pete, but I'll just finish that. Michael's post Michael's post about the suicide rates, and that's something I feel that we have dropped the ball on, you know, and young men being the largest group. We're still losing 6 a day, and that's likely to increase with all the stresses, with the losses of jobs and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I'm just going to jump on that quickly. When everyone says suicide is not an option, it is a bloody option. That's what's happening. Yeah. So we talk about suicide. We don't not talk about it, because every single person that I've had, and I've got to say, it's a pleasure to know people that have gone into the hole and come out the other side. Not one of them's not wanted to be here. And I said that last week, and I don't want to dive into that too much today because I bit on that last week. But with the 21-year-old guy, Peter, I sat there and I heard his story and about the amount of times that he wasn't supported. He didn't have a support network behind him to get through that.
Well, he messaged me and he wanted me to bring him specific drugs, and I said no. Yeah. I rejected his. We're talking him on Messenger as well. Like, I was trying to counsel him on Messenger as well, and he said, "I really need you to bring me. You know, can you get me some of this?" And I said, "No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't do that for you." I said, "You need to ring drug and alcohol straight away, counselling. You need to talk to them straight away. Here's the number," and I gave him the number. Yeah. So you can give people the life rafts. You know, you can do that kind of thing, but such a frustrating process. You know. And then about a week later, his family was all in the news, you know, that he'd taken his life, and his family were like pouring their hearts out. And I'm not going to take away their pain for them, but from what I heard from him, it was two different stories. But he really, he was so addicted to these drugs, and he just wanted to numb that pain, you know. And what I look at it, I go right down to the grassroots. It's all about love, you know. Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, obviously there's the chemical stuff that you talked about to Angela, but this guy's been rejected his whole life.
Yeah,
that's what I see. I see the pain. I see where that pain's come from, and I look into that, and I go, it's about not feeling wanted, feeling respected. It's not about. It's about not feeling that you matter, and that's what you've been talking about too, Scott. And it's a feeling about you're not good enough. Why? Because you got a different choice, you know, sexual choice, or you're a bit nerdy at school and you don't fit in. You're not a football player or whatever. You hang out in the library and play Dungeons and Dragons or something. But at the end of the day, we all have a heart, and we all got bones, and we're a skeletal system, and we all bleed. You know, whether we're male or female. Yeah. The only difference is we're a different sex, with the same makeup. Yeah, we might be a little bit different, you know, when it comes to how men and women think and anatomy and physiology. But at the end of the day, we all have a heart and we all bleed, you know. And as soon as we forget that, there's so many people that need help, that need to be able to listen, to be able to hurt and be told their story and go, hey, I'm hurting, I'm not coping. And that's one reason why I started the group, because I know what it's like not having anyone there at all. It's really tough, really, really tough. I want to go back, rewind the tape a little bit, just really quickly, Scott. And we're talking about, I want to talk about labelling, and I was misdiagnosed once, and I was trying to save this relationship I was in because we had a son. And I go, you know what, I'm going to get mental care. I went to the psychologist, and I dragged myself along there first. And I said, this is what's going on in my relationship, and this is how I'm feeling. He goes, Pete, he says, I don't know if you realise this, but you're actually suffering from, depression. You're actually, severe depression. I go, what, really? He goes, yeah. I go, are you sure? He goes, yeah. And I go, okay. So I went away for a whole week thinking I'm suffering from this severe depression. And I go back, and he goes, I went back the next week, and he goes, I must apologise. And I go, what's that? He goes, I misdiagnosed you. And I go, oh, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I worked it out. He goes, you're only depressed when you're with her. And I go, that makes a lot of sense. And I said, I totally agree with you. So I didn't have this like full on this depression. I was only like feeling depressed when I was with this certain person who used to pull me down and try to put me in their box that make them felt safe. You know what I mean? So
how,
it's funny.
But how did it feel going back to that doctor and knowing that he's thought about you? And he's put his hand up and said, do you know what? I was actually wrong at that point. I'm sorry, mate. How did that feel?
Oh, he was a top bloke. Yeah, he was actually had a Brazilian background, and he actually moved to Melbourne. I was really sad that he went because he was a really good psychologist, you know. And I didn't see him very often. And then I went back the next week. He goes, "What? You're still coming back?" You know. So it was he was a really good guy, and unfortunately, you know, he had to move to Melbourne. But it was interesting when like I felt like yes, I'm off the hook. I don't have this like severe depression. I knew I didn't. But I knew I wasn't happy. I knew I was definitely not happy with certain situations in my life that made me. And he was on the money too. He managed to diagnose it correctly down the track, you know, a week later.
Interesting. For me, the fact that he simply put his hand up. Sorry, Angela.
Taking clinical, I mean, like again, the severe chemical imbalance. Taking that aside, but we actually have, you know, depression is actually part of life. It's a normal component of life, like grief, you know, like the ability to let go is perfectly normal. Now we medicate the hell out of people for that. I've had clients who were literally, you know, I had one client who had nursed his wife through cancer for 3 years, full-time care. She passed away. 2 weeks later, his GP put him on antidepressants. You know, there was no opportunity to even process any kind of grief, which is resetting the whole chemical imbalance into, you know, like creating different, you know, like a different neurochemistry. And it's so important that we actually trust that we can do this. And, you know, again, we're coming from this emotion means to move out.
Yeah.
So to help somebody express their emotions, but from that non-judgmental place of not, oh, it's bad that you're feeling this, or you shouldn't be. I mean, I teach people how to listen. I've got training modules for a week just listening skills. The average person listens for 17 seconds before they make a suggestion. So it's not just doctors, it's anyone. I mean,
about 5 seconds.
So again, it's the whole, you know, let's just shift this into different consciousnesses, how we deal with each other, more gentle and less task efficient, you know, or this, I mean, I love the way we say hello. And this is, you know, when I first moved to Australia, I was like, it really baffled me because it's this, how are you? And I would go, actually not, you know, like, and I would actually give an answer with regards to how I was feeling. And people looked at me like I was, what's going on with you? I mean, literally, I mean, I sometimes say because I do these courses where I'd say to people, okay, so let's practice emotional awareness, because a lot of people have no idea how they feel. They feel fine, fucked up, irrational, neurotic, emotionally unavailable. I'm fine. Just don't talk to me. So I say to people, try this out. When you're standing at the checkout and they say, how are you? Actually think about and feel into how you're feeling right now. And then instead of going fine, just give an answer of how you're actually feeling. It will completely confuse people. Because it's just such a, you know, it's just a throwaway line. How are you? Yeah. And people come back, and even when when I say, I'm actually feeling pretty cheerful with a touch of melancholy today, they go, yeah, good.
Yeah.
But what does that lead into when you do take that little bit extra on?
Conversation.
It leads into conversation. It actually takes a bit of effort to get that.
Yeah.
So, you know, like one of my greatest influences, Stephen Covey, he talks about, you know, as a society, you know, we've spent years learning how to communicate. How much of that is talking? How much time do we actually spend learning how to listen?
Yeah, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Yeah,
absolutely. But that's I'm fascinated. Like I do this every Thursday night now, and it just fascinates me how we start talking, we talk about a subject and we fluff around a little bit with it and we get into a bit of meat, but the real gold never comes until the 50th minute. So, like the real liquid gold moments come once we've taken the time to get to know each other, understand each other a bit more. We spend that time, and then the amount of gold. Like, I don't know about you guys, and I'm sort of promoting a bit the campfire tonight because I really want people around it, because it's just, you know, I love being a camper. There's so much heart in this place and experience. And if you need a tool to get through something right now, hit someone up in our group, because there's tools everywhere. And guess what? If Sharon doesn't have it, she's going to recommend someone. Maybe Angela might have it, and we all look after each other. So for me, this whole Campfire Project is exactly the medicine we need, and I hope more people get around each other. So sorry, I'm just getting passionate.
I'm completely on board with you.
Fire it up.
Yeah.
There was a lovely comment on the bottom. There was a comment from one of the listeners that talked about. Yep, there you go.
Just on that, if people are watching live, I need you to get StreamYard little box somewhere that give you permission to show us your name. That would be grateful, because I've sort of, Facebook user is not the best thing for me. So anyway, the comment here is, it's all about love, but self-love can be found too, not needing an external experience. Sharon, you want to go with that one?
Yeah, I've done a lot of courses on self-love and a lot of reading, because I came from a bad place, I guess, for want of better terminology. Came from a not such a good space through my childhood, and then, you know, I had a happy relationship, but it became very challenging towards the end. So I was suffering. Suffering's not the right word. You know, I was feeling a lot of remorse and guilt, and you know, I was drinking and not in a good space at all. And so I've done a lot of work on letting things go, and finding self-love, and you know, letting a lot of pain go, and a lot of feelings that aren't resourceful, you know, the things that keep you ruminating and anxious. And so I've learned to let go of a lot of my story so that I can move on and have self-love. And I've practiced all sorts of things, you know, to help, meditation particularly, but just even things like gratitude and affirmations, and, you know, things that really help you to find yourself and to love yourself more. And it's so important. It's part of this whole picture that we're talking about, the mental health, that people need to let go of the negative feelings, that, you know, you sit with them and you feel them, but work through them, you know, when they're destructive, when they're not resourceful. If we can help people to find their own happiness and love, self-love, that's just so vital. Yeah.
There is always challenges, though, and for me, whenever you step up to the plate, you're able to put up with one challenge. Hello, here's a new one. You're leveling up. You're about to go to the next level. And just on self-love, Sharon, something that I find a lot of people don't do is trust themselves.
Yeah.
And until they can trust themselves, they can't find that self-love.
True. Very true. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think sometimes some of that comes from childhood. You know, if you as Peter said before, in a particular relationship, if you're constantly being put down and told that you're not worthy, and then you adopt those feelings, then you don't trust yourself. You know, you're caught up in those that negative self-talk. I think once you start to let that go and heal all of that process, I think then you can start to trust yourself. Hey, I can do it, you know. And then if you do have this sort of lovely communication that we all have, where, you know, people give you support and even accolades or whatever, you know, oh geez, I really rocked that. And then we're all children, you know, we're all we all have an inner child, and we're all seeking the same things, aren't we? So if we can learn to trust ourselves with the help of others, I think is what I'm saying, and letting go of the parts of us that don't trust for whatever reason. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
So Angela is doing some amazing work with emotions inside the Campfire and sharing them. It's absolutely gorgeous. And one of the things that I've had to learn is to actually accept an emotion and just sit with it. And my greatest teacher, my 9-year-old son, I love him to tips. I always talk about him. One day I'm going to interview him on here because it'll be a bit of fun. But it's Angela and Kenny who just let them sit with the emotion. Let them feel it. Don't tell them not to have it. And as adults, it's like we need to accept that too. And there's a lot of acceptance in that emotion. So, Angela, can you put some more light on that?
Well, I don't like the word negative emotions. I don't use the word positive and negative emotions. I use pleasant and unpleasant because every emotion has a positive intent. So no matter how negative it feels, the frustration, the anger, the sadness, there's always something that this emotion wants to tell us. And there's always a positive intent. And when we sit with the emotion and I'm not talking about wallowing. I'm not talking about putting on the drama queen tiara and going, oh my God, I'm going to wallow in this now forever. But the really feeling it and allowing ourselves to feel it rather than pushing it down, self-medicating with whatever, sugar, alcohol, meditation, shopping, whatever it needs to actually suppress it, which is what we do. But really feel it and allowing that feeling to be there and taking the label negative off and just going, okay, that doesn't feel so great, but there's something really good in this for me. And once we know, and I generally say to people, so what's the need that's not being fulfilled? So what is it that you really want right now that you're not getting? And this comes, by the way, there's a great school called Nonviolent Communication that's with Marshall Rosenberg, and he developed this beautiful script where you just really listen to somebody, and they use that in peace negotiations. So what's the emotion and what is it that you're not getting right now? And that in itself already reframes everything, because all of a sudden it's not anger because I'm, sorry, this is before 9 o'clock, so I'm not effing mad because you're making me angry, right? Because nobody makes me angry. That's my perception. I always have choice about how I feel. But when I sit and I go, you know what, there's something actually there. And this is why I teach people to actually vent on purpose. So, I could, if I had something that was bothering me and I knew it was something that Scott didn't know anything about, I'd go to Scott. If I knew that you, Sharon, knew something about it, I would not go to you.
Explain that. Let's get deeper on that.
Well, I'm going to do something with Alan next week about that. But it's about going, I'm really angry right now, and I'm going to go and I'm going to vent that. I'm going to get it out of my system. And often what I find is when I do that, it resets it within 2-3 minutes of just sitting there and going, oh, and not telling a story. That's the thing, is this, I'm not telling a story. My goal is to reset myself.
Yeah.
It dissipates. And all of a sudden I have got access to my brain again. And I have done this with, I call them sunshine people because they help spread sunshine, whereas, the other people spread fog.
Yep.
I call up one of my sunshine people and I say, have you got 5 minutes? I need to vent. And they go, sure, if they're available. If not, then that's fine. And I'll vent. And because they don't know what's going on, they can listen with empathy. They don't fix. They just listen. And I can tell you quite honestly, 9 times out of 10, I sit after 3 minutes and go, oh God, I don't even know anything about the situation. Or, my God, it's all my perception. Or I really need to ask some questions. And the anger just goes like that. And then I can go and have a constructive conversation with the person.
Peter.
Yes.
I'm watching you nod, so there's something in you that needs to be said.
I've got a whole well of information around self-love and emotion and feelings. And sometimes I try little exercises with the men's group, and I start talking about self-love, and it's a bit rich, and it's probably a bit too soon for some guys. So it doesn't really it doesn't really work that well. But I remember, like, I grew up. Long story short, I lost my folks when I was very young, and I was adopted at 2.5, and I spent a couple of years in the hospital, and then 6 months to 2.5, and then I was adopted out, and then into a good family. And by the time I hit 16, I was pretty much suicidal. I had 2 older siblings that were my adoptive parents' children. So I was adopted into a family of 2 kids, and one of them was not happy about it and made that known for quite a long time. I think I suffered a lot of emotional abuse and some physical. By the time I was probably 16, I started getting suicidal thoughts. I was driving a car, I had my LSPs, and I used to count the telegraph poles, which one's it going to be? But the strangest funny thing about it is, even though I felt that way miserable, I knew I had a good heart. It was really weird. I was very quite mature in a really odd way as a young adult, young teenager, 15, and I knew I had a good heart. And I thought, well, I don't want to do those I don't want to end my life. I just want to end the pain. How do you do that? And I ended up becoming a pastry cook. I did an apprenticeship as a pastry cook. And the first day in TAFE, I walked past this door and it said counselling. I kind of did a U-bolt and walked straight in. I saw about 2 or 3 different counsellors, and then I ended up seeing one for about 4 years. And it turned the whole thinking around from being a victim, out of that mode. And it started make me kind of want to stand up for myself and go, hey, wait a minute, you don't have to listen to these things. And I was labelled all sorts of things, and it's taken me, I was labelled dumb and stupid and all these kind of different things, and I didn't do very well at school because of emotional reasons. And long story short, I hit 21. I couldn't handle it anymore. I'd had enough. I'd had enough of the negative abuse, the negativity. I was just over it. And I was drinking every Friday night after work, and I just packed my bags and I made a decision, and I moved to Queensland, and I haven't looked back. And I've gone back and visited my family. I love my family. They are my family. They're the only family I have, and I love them. And they've done their best they can with the knowledge that they have. But it hasn't helped me, and it's only made me feel worse over time. And it wasn't until recently, till I'm telling you about, just after that separation I told you about before, was I actually stood up to my bully, or one of my family members. I stood up to them, and I said, if you can't support me, you can. And they tried to argue, and I said, if you can't support me, you can F off. I don't want to know you. And it changed their thinking. It realised, hey, they're going to finally lose me. And it'd already pushed me for probably 30-odd years. And I just got to a point where my self-worth was worth more than the relationship with my family. And they still challenge it, but not as much, and they know I won't stand for it. But it took me leaving a relationship. It took a lot of things for me to change and go, hey, wait a minute. I deserve to be loved. I'm fine who I am. I don't need your approval. And I had to give that love to myself from the age of 21. And that's when I turned around, and I this girl I met, we had a relationship for 10 months, and she said, Pete, you need to read this book. She had this book, and it was from Louise Hay, and it says, you can heal your life. And that changed my whole way of thinking. It taught me about positive affirmations, and pretty much it said you must, it takes 30 days to break a habit or make a habit. So you had to practice these positive affirmations, and it was really simple. It was basic. It was like anyone could do it. And the way I was treated at an early age, like a dum could do it, right? So it's like, and it was only 3 things. It was I love and approve of myself. And that's all it was. And I said it 3 times in the morning, 3 times at lunch, and 3 times at dinner. And they said to do it for 3 months. I did it for a year. I was consistent, and I did it in the mirror, looking into my eyes, and all I could see was that beautiful little child in my eyes in the mirror. And it changed and I taught myself self-love at that age, 21. So I know I can really relate, Angela, and I can really relate to, and I know how to give that gift. I know how to help people with that as well, but they have to be ready. And it's not easy. Like you, after this exercise, try to look in the mirror into your eyes and see what you see.
Yeah.
And And I'll give you a quick example. You're in a supermarket, and you can hear this kid screaming his head off, like, and you go around, and it's just like this 3-year-old girl, and she's just gorgeous. You can see her, and she's tears, and she's lost her mum, and her mum's, down there a bit, down a few aisles, and this girl's distraught. She's lost her mum. She's in a supermarket. She's 3 years old, and she doesn't understand your emotions. She just knows that she's scared and she's lost. Now, what you did was you went and picked up this child and held it and go, you're going to be safe. You're going to be fine. Now, imagine if we did that to ourselves for our whole life. Yeah. What if, or even the people we thought loved us did that for us?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it'd be such a different world, And I've had that many shake my head moments with my family going, what did they just say? I can't, and I'm like, I just don't listen to it anymore. And I just shake my head. I go, what are they thinking? Do they actually hear what they're saying? And I've got to a point where I just laugh now, But before I didn't. It hurt me for many, many years. And, even up until recently, up to about 4 years ago, they tried it again on me and they were successful. And then I go, no one's ever going to do that again. And I stand up for myself now in a mature, polite, loving as I can be. So that's my story with that self-love.
Can I just thank you? Can I just thank you? Can I thank you for knowing that you're worth it? Because, mate, it's a hard thing to find new tools to make a change. And I don't see anyone sitting on this panel that probably hasn't done that. Yeah. The goal in life for me at the moment is to create as many tools as possible for people, so that I don't ever want to take away somebody's pain, because I think the biggest growth comes from pain.
I'll do that.
What I do want is to give people the tools to be able to do that. And that's why we're here.
If I may say this, I think what's really important is, and I say this when I work with people every time, I say what I'm giving you is I'm giving you tools and their choices. And you can take them or you can leave them. And I would always ask you to play with them lightheartedly. Don't start, going for big topics like I'm going to resolve world peace or whatever it is right from the start. Practice with little things first. So don't go for the big relationships. Start with the not so important relationships and, build the one with yourself and then go to the bigger ones. But play with them because they may be unfamiliar in the beginning. It's like anything that's not new, we generally reject. That's new and that doesn't feel so great, we reject. So I say, give this tool a go at least a few times, and then make a choice. If it insults your soul, dismiss it. If it's just uncomfortable, keep going, because then you're creating a new habit. But the most important thing I say to people, and this is the only person who has to approve of you is you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing we can actually teach children. Instead of giving them this whole, you're dependent on my goodwill and I have to approve of you. And, if I like it, it's okay. My favorite question to kids, and I don't have children, is what do you think? Or how do you feel about that? And they go, well, what do you think? And I go, no, do you like it? Are you happy with this? And they go, yeah. And I say, that's all that matters. And they get really confused. But I know that this creates that self-reference that allows us to then say, you know what, you're entitled to your opinion, like you, Peter. That's your opinion. That's perfectly okay. But that doesn't really, that's not really that relevant to me. And what happens is we become much more compassionate with each other, much more empathetic, and we get into that listening space because we don't have to fix everybody and, and make sure that everybody is controlled by whatever perception I have of them. Oh.
But the thing I struggle with, sorry, Angela, the thing I struggle with the most in my adult life is when I'm conscious of all this, it's fine. It's the subconscious, and when I don't realize my behaviors and how I'm hurting the people I love the most, and I just want to beat myself up because it's not who I am. It's just that inbuilt training you get as a kid from your surroundings and your family and the people you grow up with. It takes years and years to work through that kind of stuff, and I'm learning more because I'm.
Sorry if I just may interrupt.
Yeah.
But it's the work that matters. It's actually going there. I had one of my counseling teachers said when I first started studying, he said to me, if you remember nothing but this, and it's always stuck with me, we all have the right to have a shitty childhood. We do not have the right to live it as an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I frame myself in so strongly with this men's group that I founded and started up because I know that guys need a safe place to talk and to vent. And it's I lost where I was going there. So it's just really what I found as well is the negative and the positive self-talk. Like what I've done, I've loved it so much. The group, I started to take it more seriously, and I started to do a diploma in counselling, and I'm almost finished. So I'm learning all about, like you said, it's not negative, it's positive. We're calling it adaptive and maladaptive thoughts. And that tape that we play in our mind about how we think and feel about ourselves is so important. Like one thing about the self-love, this is the biggest thing. The first hardest thing that was ever to do with self-love was to accept a compliment. It took practice for me to accept a compliment. And now when someone says about my looks, I go, oh, thank you very much. You know what I mean? But in the old days, it's like, who, me? No, you felt like the ugly duckling for so long,
Yeah.
And it's learning to accept. Self-love is learning to accept the genuine compliments from people that want to give you one. And you not have to accept it, but you got to counteract. You got to go, thank you for that compliment. I really appreciate it. And that's full acceptance then, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just want to jump on that because you can't accept what someone doesn't give. We've got to give each other more compliments. We've got to care each other. But if you see someone doing something simple and it's good, tell them.
Tell them.
Yeah.
You're helping people accept. You're helping. Like I love nothing more than just stopping with someone I just don't know, having a conversation and learning a little bit about them, and just there's a guy, I don't know his name. And I don't know if I made a difference to him or not, but I know a lot of the homeless people in my area, and they're good people. They just haven't got the tools at the minute, and they're getting them. They're still in the game. So, but it's one guy. I saw him one day, and he's walked past, and I've just grabbed him and said, "Bro," I said, "I see you a lot. You look really good today." And he did. He just, yeah, I've had a shower. I'm feeling good. I said, "Man, that's awesome." Now I don't know if I made a difference, but I didn't see him for 3 months.
Wow. You probably changed his whole life, changed his day.
Maybe it was just that day. You could, but just help people feel good. You don't know what anyone's going through,
But when you really start to get to know your own emotions, I become more aware of other people's. Like I can tell as soon as someone's changed something, whether their hair or whatever, their makeup or something different, you just notice. You just notice. I mean, I've always been a people watcher because you learn so much from people's behaviors and their mannerisms and all that, and how they talk and their body language. But as like often people at work, they get haircuts. Said, "Oh, look, you got a haircut. Looks fantastic." So it's always good to especially the ladies like it because they spend a lot of money on their hair and stuff. It's good. It's good. You got to put credit where credit's due, I say.
Guys like compliments too. Feel free to compliment a guy. I love nothing more than telling a mate that he looks good for the day. And he'll start looking at me and say, "Yeah, that's right, you're cute." We've gone well over an hour, and I need to do my favourite part of the day. All right. Within a minute, what's the one bit of advice you've got for people at the moment? I'm going to start with you, Sharon, if that's all right.
I'm working with families at the moment, getting through homeschooling.
Yep.
So the advice that I would give them is to go easy on themselves, to lower their expectations, and that the mental health of the family is more important than how many lessons we get done. This might be helpful for you, Scott. You don't have to complete every task. It's better that you stay sane and happy and balanced together. Just go gently.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. And that's advice I'm taking too at the minute.
Good.
Angela.
Well, I would say that what's really important at the moment is to accept that confusion, anxiety, and sadness and frustration and anger and all of those emotions are part of the process.
Yeah.
When we're talking about change, that's just one thing that switches from one to the other. We're going through a massive transition, and transition is something that happens over a period of time. And all of these emotions are part of that. It just means we're shifting from one condition into another. And if we're embracing that, and if we're going, that's just part of it. And again, as we talked about before, instead of pushing it down or medicating, self-medicating, just saying this is what it is, and this is the important bit, not inflicting it on other people, but just saying this is just how I feel, and owning that would already make a really big difference.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you. Pete?
Well, don't ever be afraid just to look in the mirror and look into your eyes and look at what you feel and need. I just wish more guys would put their hand up and say, hey, I need help today, or I need a hug today, or I need you to sit with me, and I need you to listen to what I'm saying. There's such a hidden thing with, and just men only, sorry, women, we're hidden with depression and anxiety. And just look in the mirror and go, you're going to be okay. And sometimes if no one's there, you got to pat yourself on the back too. Go, don't worry, you'll be okay, because you need that touch. And if you can't get it, you can give it to yourself in that way as well. Don't give up on yourself. There's plenty of people that will need you too one day. So.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. The time just flies, and there's a couple of comments that have popped up, which I'm just going to pop up now. Look, thank you all for your time in doing this. This has been so good to listen to. We are all doing this for free. We just want best for people. So, Andrea, thank you for that. I'm gonna finish tonight on a similar theme to Peter. I want you all to think about how good it feels to help people. I want you all to feel about how good you feel when you just give someone a chop out and you put the smile on the face. How about we don't rob other people of that feeling? How about we put our hands up and say, hey, I need help, because you feel good when you help somebody. It takes you to put your hand up to say, can I have some help? And if you can do that, you're going to make someone feel good. So thank you so much for everyone that's been a part of the campfire. Thank you for those who watched. Thank you, Angela, Sharon, and Peter. I have really adored these things, and beautiful people coming together to do beautiful things. It's gorgeous. So thank you. So good night, everyone. See you again next Thursday.
Thank you.
See ya. Thanks, Scott.